All right, folks, welcome back to another edition of the High School Huddle, your one-stop shop for everything and all things Section 5 sports. I'm AJ Feldman. He's Carl Jones. We're back from our Thanksgiving break. We got some turkey, got a little Bills football, beating up on the Lions. Carl got to go home. Well, I got to go home, too, and my home is a little bit closer than your home. But it's good to be back, isn't it, Carl?
Oh, yeah, definitely. It was kind of weird going to the hockey game earlier this week because I feel like I haven't worked in like a month. I don't know. With the Bills playing, this will be tonight as we record this, their third game in 12 days. The high school championships wrapping up and being able to go home. It just hasn't felt like we've done this, first off. And then secondly, I feel like I haven't stepped into Channel 8's offices in a while either. But no, it's good to do this, and it's good to get the show back on the road.
It has kind of worked out pretty well. You know, our Section 5 teams didn't make it all the way to state tournament, but, Bills are crazy. So we got this, nice little lull in between the seasons. It's a good time. It's a good time. But as you mentioned, it's been a while since we've done this with the 1 week off. So we've got a little bit of recapping to do of our Section 5 fall sports season wrapping up. We had the volleyball state championships. We had the football state championships, Far West regionals and semifinals since we last saw you. I went out to the Albany Civic Center. I think it's Capitol Center, as the kids call it. But got to see Webster and Spencerport both play in the state's final three. They do it down to three. They both made it to the championship game. Both came up with losses. Webster fell to Shenandoah in 4 sets. Spencerport lost to Jamesville DeWitt in 3. And just a great showing by both of those schools. Webster hadn't been there since, 96, their last Section 5 title, I believe it was. So a long time since they had been there to that point. I talked to their coach afterwards. He was still raving about, head coach Greg Kennedy, still raving about the fan support. Was getting all these texts, even though they lost, just congratulate them on a great season. So good to see a good performance from Webster. They really... That first set was 30-20. Actually, it might have been. Let me make sure I get this right. I didn't write in the article. Bad AJ. I think it was 32-30. I think it was 30-28. Either way, the winning team got to.
Yeah.
What was that?
It was 30-28. I remember saying that on air. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. So 30-28. So that was really the deciding game of that set. Or Webster did end up winning the second set, but they just kind of ran out of juice. But if you get those first two, obviously things are a different story. And then Spencerport falling to Jamesville DeWitt. The first and third sets kind of, didn't really go their way. The second set was a dogfight. That was really their chance to make a match out of that. But they've got a really young squad. They didn't really expect to be at this point. So just to make it all the way to the championship, the state championship, when literally they told me, who knows if you believe this or not. They were like, I don't know what we're going to do. Like, we might not win games. Like, we don't know what we have. And to make it all the way to the state championship game, that's pretty impressive for that Spencerport squad.
Oh, 100%. Webster getting back to, their glory, their promised days. In the 90s, they won several sectional titles. And then Coach Kennedy corrected me saying, although maybe the NISFA doesn't count their state championships and state title runs, they did make a few runs back in the 90s. So good to see them back on that stage. And then obviously, reading your article when you dropped it and the story that you did, how Spencerport, they lost everyone, and the fact that they made it back to this stage and getting a chance to play for a state championship is nothing to sneeze at all.
And the girls volleyball, no state championships as well. We had 2 teams make it to the championship game, HAC and Wayne in Class D and B respectively. Both got swept in that game, but still great seasons for all of our volleyball teams. On the football side of things, we haven't seen you since the Far West Regionals, so we had 2 teams go on to the state Final Four. We had Pembroke. How about let's start out with Pembroke. State champs, regional champs, Amen. It was Canasteo Greenwood all season, but Pembroke really turned it on. We both got to see them down the stretch. Shout out to the Dragons.
Man, hell of a season. Like you said, that was the Canasteo Greenwood division all year long. And the Dragons slowly crept their way up the standings and got hot at the right time. And they were rewarded with a championship. Shout out to them boys.
Yeah, Tyson Taunton really getting it done for Pembroke. And then everybody else, Batavia and Hilton, both coming up short in the state semifinals. Hilton had a chance in their semifinal game. They were tied 7 in the second quarter. They had a turnover, which was really seemed to be their best chance. It was tied 14-14, but they just kind of couldn't hold it up from there. Batavia ran into a buzzsaw in their state semifinal game and just strong performances all around. And I don't know exactly what our takeaway is from this. OAE suffered a tough loss. McQuaid as well. What is the last bracket? Attica lost as well. So we had those teams fall short. I think maybe my big takeaway, if I want to go as a whole, is that maybe Hilton becomes this really strong, powerful team in Class A. You know, they were in Class AA for many years. They were just barely in classification in Class A. Like Victor has like 6 more kids than that, something like that, and they're in AA. So they might be right back in AA. But if they stay in Class A, Hilton could be a force to be reckoned with, because they took care of a Jamestown team that not many people, at least that we talked to, and ourselves, thought that they would give them a fight with their D1 quarterback.
After their sectional championship game, both of the running backs said, we're a Class AA school down in A. I mean, that's how it's going to transpire for the next few years. That style of play, that big bully ball, no one wants to see that late October and November when it's cold outside. So I don't see why this couldn't continue for the foreseeable future with that team.
Exactly. So we're not going to do our full award show that we've done in the past, but we want to just highlight some of the best things that we saw in the fall sports season. I'm going to start off first. The 2 things I want to highlight here: the Sutherland field hockey team. They were sectional runners-up 4 years prior. They finally got on top with a dramatic win over Mendon. Great to see all of those girls. You know, they were a senior-heavy team. They had a lot of girls who had been through all of those losses, or at least most of those losses. Some of them were blowouts. Some of them were very dramatic, where they were just on the verge of winning. And good to see them finally pull it out. So shout out to the Sutherland field hockey team. And then I want to talk about, we had some great wide receiver talent in Section 5 this year. And it all kind of came together. I believe it was week 3 or week 4, something like that, where we had about 8 like catch of the year candidates. I got a couple of these names as I play over the highlights as we're going right now. Amaje Giddens, Torrance Washington, Tyler Washington. We had Manny Sepulveda that week. For Brockport and Canandaigua, we had 2 guys going off. Azay O'Day for Brockport, Sean Ovani from Canandaigua, and then it was Josh Campbell, I believe, for Churchville Chili. We just had some fantastic catches, and this was a theme throughout the entire season, but it really all came to a head when the ball went up in the air. We were treated to some shows all year in Section 5.
Man, the kids showed out, and they made our jobs a lot of fun. That night especially, when we got back to the station, we're like, oh, no, we got something special. And to be honest, it really didn't come to fruition until maybe after the show, where we realized, like, hold on. Like, this isn't 1 or 2. This is however many highlights we have here. I think at least 6 at the minimum of just phenomenal plays, 3rd and longs, touchdowns, kids literally snatching it out the air. It was a fun, definitely a fun night, to say the least. And the video that you tweeted out was dope to see for sure. And
yeah,
then,
I mean, as the show went along, like we kept had to like keep going above each other, because we just had these amazing catches. Like at one point, we were basically screaming and just like, you know, if we could swear on the air, we would have swore on the air because of some of those catches. Let's just say that.
No, the FCC would have had to be like, you know what, I understand, because those catches were that unbelievable. So it was a fun night, to say the least. And 2 things that stuck out for me was a story that I did early on in the season. The Mid-Lakes Screaming Eagles, like that little nickname right there. A 4-4 season that may not seem all too impressive, but when you look at where they've come from, they lost 25 games in a row from 2017 to the spring of 2021. I think AJ was at the game where you were, Alexa. I don't know the specifics. At the game where they won finally in 2021, where they beat Bishop Kearney. This season, turned things around under the tutelage of Dave Whitcomb, Section 5 legend. Only coach to win 4 sectional titles at 4 different schools. And the players embraced him. They understood like the assignment every time they played up under him. And what stood out the most is, you hear players talk and, you know, you feel the emotion, but the kids genuinely said it was embarrassing to play football here. It was just embarrassing. And to hear them say that and to see the smiles on their faces now, that they turn things around, those seniors especially, man, that stood through that. And like you've talked about ad nauseum, man. Other sports, it sucks. Losing. Football is really the one sport where like losing is terrible. Like it's awful. So
I probably add wrestling in there too, because then you can't eat. So
I'm
those are the two I
starving.
wouldn't want to do.
Yeah, I'm starving myself and I'm getting physically beat on. Nah, that's not going to
I guess maybe if you lose in wrestling, you're the one doing the eating. So maybe the losers eat a little bit more, but I'll just say that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, but the mid legs, I was really proud of watching them from a distance this year. Also, no home field at all this year, so that was also another hill that they had to climb. And then for me, seeing the Class A2 division shake out this year, Canandaigua. If you want to look at like from the macro a little bit, Canandaigua won again, cool. Like that's their fourth or third in a row or whatever. But how that came to be is just like pretty dope to me. East went undefeated, so shout out to our RCSD school for doing so in that regard. Canandaigua, young team, but then Taishi Crockton, who we didn't hear of their entire run, goes on a bonkers 4-game stretch to end the season to lead Canandaigua to another brick and make things shake in the Far West Regionals. But not just them though. Athena, Jaden Rapp, junior quarterback, made it shake every other week. Matthew Renaletta on this team. Eastridge down the stretch, the last like 3 games, I'm like, yo, where the Lancers come from? We ain't had them. Like, where are these highlights at? Like, I just highlight some of those kids. Cordell Young, we obviously know as a hooper. Lou Almozan, Amir Rogers. I mean, they had an amazing game and matched up with Athena, where they came back, game-winning field goal, 50-48, I believe, in the first round of the sectionals. And then East, obviously, they're young. They got a who's who of guys that are coming back. Anthony Diaz, Amir Jackson, to say a couple. And then Brockport. I got to give love to the Blue Devils, man. Every time we showed up to a Brockport football game, they showed out, man, especially Landon Scott, the quarterback, only a sophomore. I think we're going to see a lot more of him next year. And then his running mate in the backfield, Nathan Parker, getting it done out of the backfield as well. All of A2. I mean, just this exciting ball. Every time they linked up, it was going to be treated to a show.
Yeah, the one thing about that is you wonder if this was the down year for Canandaigua. We'll see what they bring back next year, but there is a lot of talent around that section. So we will see how that shakes out next year. But before we look ahead to the next fall season, winter sports have started to pick up a little bit. We've been to a couple of games so far. We got a couple storylines. Just going to break those down real quick for you right here. I went to see Aquinas at the Lil Nooch Classic that they're calling it, the first year of that. In memory of the godfather of Aquinas hockey. Aquinas starting out with a 3-0 start, and just the way they've gotten it done, they beat Greece 5-4. They were down 4-1 in that game, so they scored the final 4 goals of that game. You had Connor Carey with 2 goals in that, Mike Dozier with a goal and an assist. Originally Dozier had 2 goals, so they must have taken one away from him, but a big comeback win for them. And then I believe it was last night. It might have been Tuesday. I think it was last night. They beat Geneseo Avon Livonia 7-6, and they were down 6-3 in the third period. So this is a team that in a 1-week span came back from 3-goal deficits, 2 games. They're undefeated. In that Geneseo game, it was Connor Mangoni, 2 goals, 2 assists. He had the OT winner. You had Cam Stewart with 2 goals and 2 assists. And this is an Aquinas program that saw kind of a return to prominence last year. They lost in the sectional championship game to Thomas 4-2. And Aquinas, these aren't the strongest teams in the world that they're beating, but still 3-0. And especially as I transition to Carl beautifully, with the way Thomas has started off this season, Class B could be wide open this year.
Hey, man, obviously Thomas took down Aquinas in that sectional title game last year. But Schroeder beating the Battle of Webster, Schroeder, for the first time since, I believe, the 2017-18 season, took down their crosstown foes. I believe it was a 1-0 final. It was one of those games where Anthony Swinson scored the first period goal, I believe, a minute and like 10 seconds into the game. So I'm like, all right, cool. Get a couple of highlights, go back to the station, cut something up, whatever, job easy for the day. Well, no one else scored the rest of the game. So, I mean, shout out to the kids, I guess, for competing in that regard and making my job a little bit harder. But Colin Smith, I'll give him some love, the goalie for Schroeder, pitching a shutout. Thomas is, they were senior heavy last year. We did a story on them with the Stappenbeck brothers and how they were a formidable foe. But regardless of what they brought back, I know Schroeder taking down your rival is always fun. And, man, that division, wide open.
When I saw that result, because, it takes a while to get back in the swing of things. For a second, I was like, oh, yeah, Schroeder always beats Thomas in hockey. I forgot it's the other way around. So congratulations to Schroeder for knocking off their rivals 1-0. Tough to do early in the season, so congratulations to the Schroeder hockey team. And then a little basketball to talk. I went to the Edison Tech Tip-Off Classic on Saturday. Edison and East both playing some out-of-state teams. I saw Edison just lose to this Patrick school. It's a freak at 7'2". He's got offers from Syracuse. So I'm not going to talk too much about that. And then East, they kind of blew out the game where I did get to see. I was there for like 4 minutes. I'm not even going to lie to you guys. But I just want to talk about East for a second because, the Barley brothers are gone. Pops is still there at the bench. He's got a young squad. Micah Breedlove Johnson, he's a sophomore. He had 29 points in that game. And I want to talk about Zion Parson for a second because we mentioned him last year. He had a big game against McQuaid. He had some good moments. He was just an 8th grader last year. And last year was, kind of imagine a good 8th grader. He's what you'd expect. He's a plucky guy, shooting threes. He did kind of show up. He drive a little bit. Now he's 6'4", and he's a freshman. And he got 24 points in that game. And he's a freshman. And he's 6 foot. Like, I did not recognize him the first time. Like, I cut the highlights the first time, and I didn't, realize this was Zion Parson. It just looks so different. So watch out for Mr. Zion Parson. To be honest with you, I don't know if he's going to stick around all 4 years just because I don't know if he's a prep school guy yet. I'm not as in-depth in, recruiting and stuff like that. Zion Parson going to be good.
Yeah, he was good as an 8th grader, and I'm not an NBA scout, college scout, but it's 2022 now. I would say about 5 years from now, if y'all seeing somebody walk across the stage, I'm not making no proclamations or nothing, but I'm saying.
Okay. All right, let's maybe calm down. I'm just saying,
Stewart, Thomas Bryant, I feel like Rochester.
You never know.
They got maybe another guy. I don't know. Who knows?
You never know. Yeah, Jalen Bradley is now at Alabama. He started off here. He left a little early on, but yeah.
Guy for the Warriors too. Lamb, right?
Yeah, Anthony Lamb finally finding some playing time, some minutes, getting some run with Steph and Dre and Clay and James Wiseman.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? I mean, but it's like you said, he's only a 15-year-old, 14-year-old. I'm not going to put pressure on the kid, but he was fun last year, and I can't wait to see him in person as well.
And then some big news in the boys basketball world.
Yeah, man, a legend stepping down. Chris Carden, out of boys head coach for Irondequoit, announced that this is his last season coaching the Eagles program this year. Just to highlight some of his accolades: 501 wins in Section 5. He won a state title for IQ back in 2017. 3 sectional bricks, and this will be his 37th season. I was able to catch up with him at a Irondequoit football game this past fall season. Great dude. He had no reason to really come up to me. He's the legend, right? And we're just talking, just about my job and what he's doing, Syracuse basketball and football, and just all around good dude from the 10, 15-minute conversation that we had. And obviously he's a phenomenal coach based off his resume, but he also has some great players returning this year with Ryan Heath and Xavier Gissendaner. So if this is his last dance, so he has a squad to make some noise this year. So shout out to Chris Carden at IQ for, calling it quits, or not quits, but retiring on a phenomenal career.
Exactly. And that A1 bracket's going to be fun. Mendon brings back all their horses. So 2 really good teams just off the bat in there. And I was at his 500th win last year. Busted out the worm in celebration. Everybody had a fun time for that. So I'm not surprised when you told me that you had a great chat with Mr. Carden there. So congrats to him for a career, and hopefully he can go out with a little bit of style, kind of like he did last year in 500. But that'll do it for us tonight on the High School Huddle. We will be back next week as we have a little more Section 5 sports to talk about. The winter season, we'll get into it a little bit more, but thanks for joining us. Thanks for joining us as we wrap up the fall season. If you're just a football guy, stick around for basketball. Stick around for hockey. We cover it all, as you guys are well aware. So for Carl Jones, I'm AJ Feldman. Have a great rest of your day, your week, and we will see you next time.